This video was made possible thanks to your support on Patreon. Subscribe on Patreon for early access to videos and additional content. Welcome to Cold Case Detectives Too Close to Home, a monthly Patreon-sponsored series where we select 5 Patreon supporters at random and examine cases featuring their hometowns. If you'd like to see your hometown featured, you can join us on Patreon, linked below. And now let's dive in with 5 cases from your hometowns, the mysteries that strike too close to home. Kelly Whiddon, Drew Bronnenberg, Panama City Beach, Florida. Our first case for this month's Too Close to Home comes from our patron Drew, who chose the town of Panama City Beach in the state of Florida. Known best for its white sandy beaches and clear glass waters, it's a resort town that less than 13,000 people call home and has many bizarre, unsolved disappearances. Kelly Whiddon was last seen on April 8th of 2016. A 44-year-old accountant who went by her middle name, Allison was a graduate of Smith Station High School and was described by those who knew her as vivacious, friendly, outgoing, and well-loved. At the time of her disappearance, she was in the middle of breaking up with her live-in boyfriend, William Daly. The same day that she was last seen, Allison and her ex got into an altercation at the Dat Cajun Place, a restaurant in the 8500 block of Thomas Drive. Investigators believe that after this fight, the 44-year-old continued to empty out her possessions from the couple's shared home at Romanza Place until April 18th, which is when Allison stopped making contact with her family and friends. Her ex-boyfriend told the authorities that he never saw her during this time. It was late May by the time Allison's loved ones realized that she was missing. The circumstances of Allison's disappearance were odd. She had left behind 2 pets, a cat and a dog, both of whom were later adopted by family members, her beloved golf club set, and a bonus check she'd received from work, which she planned to use to visit her brother in Alabama. Sometime shortly after the 44-year-old vanished, her gold 2000 Ford Ranger pickup truck was found abandoned outside of a bar named the Beach House on Front Beach Road. The vehicle was towed, which led to Allison's loved ones discovering its location, and they noted that this was odd, because Allison didn't visit bars and would never be without her vehicle, as it gave her the freedom and independence that she so often celebrated. Following the disappearance, Allison's family, who mostly lived in Alabama, made several trips over to aid in the search for their missing loved one, citing her disappearance as very uncharacteristic. Daly, Allison's ex-boyfriend, did not cooperate with the investigation, although he has not yet been named a suspect. Investigators noted that when they asked him why he hadn't filed a missing persons report for Allison, Daly asked to speak with legal counsel. Allison's older brother, Reggie Whiddon, has publicly stated his belief that Daly was involved in his sister's disappearance, adding that he believes Daly murdered the 44-year-old and buried her in his back garden. According to Reggie, Daly actually admitted to causing Allison's death on tape, but the tape is not admissible as evidence because Daly didn't know that he was being recorded, and Florida has a 2-party consent law in place, which requires that all parties involved know that they are being recorded for it to be legal. Frustrated by this and the lack of movement in the case, Reggie eventually rented an excavator, and with the aid of a friend, dug up Daly's garden without his permission. He found nothing to indicate that his sister was buried there, and did around $1,500 in damages. Of the incident, Reggie told news outlets, "I dug as deep as that track hoe would go." For his troubles, he earned a felony burglary charge, along with property damage charges and criminal mischief. In the last year, there have been no new leads in Allison's case, and no new evidence has come to light. her family still hopes that it will one day be solved. Reggie described her disappearance as the hardest thing he has ever had to deal with, telling the media, "She was my baby sister, and she looked to me to protect her, and I wasn't there. That's a hard pill to swallow." Kelly Allison Whiddon was last seen on April 8th, 2016 in Panama City Beach, although she was not thought to have gone missing until 10 days later on April 18th, which is the last time anyone heard from her. Allison is 5'9" and was around 135 pounds when she was last seen. She is a white female with brown hair, hazel eyes, and pierced ears. She goes by her middle name and has several distinctive tattoos, including a tribal-style sun on her left shoulder, a cross on her back between her shoulder blades, and a shark on her hip just below her waistline. If Allison is still alive, she will be 50 years old. If you have any information about her disappearance or her whereabouts, you can call the Bay County Sheriff's Office on 850-747-4700. Ekaterina Shcherbakova, Anthony Lesch, Monterey, California. Our next case location is brought to you by our patron Anthony, who chose the city of Monterey in the state of California. A popular destination with tourists, Monterey is home to bars, seafood restaurants, and the Monterey Bay Aquarium, as well as several eerie, unsolved mysteries. Ekaterina Shcherbakova, who went by Katie, was originally born in Russia, but moved to the United States with her mother in 1990, when she was just 5 years old. Katie had no major problems growing up, and her mother described her as a happy, strong, and kind-hearted girl. But Katie's life took a turn as she entered her teens, as district limitations meant that all the friends she'd made at Foothill Elementary would be attending a different middle school to her, leaving her distraught. The teenager spent some time at King's Middle School before she was briefly enrolled at Fitch Middle School, after she began causing trouble and becoming a handful. At Fitch, she was placed in a class that specialized in caring for children with behavioral issues. Katie's mother felt that her daughter had just fallen in with the wrong crowd, that after being separated from her childhood friends, she had reached out to the wrong people. By the time the teenager returned to King's Middle School, her relationship with her mother was strained. It was unclear to both whether or not the pair could ever regain their former relationship. On April 5th, 1998, 13-year-old Katie left her home on Casanova Street and went to a friend's house on the corner of San Pablo Avenue in the area of Seaside in Monterey. According to the friend, Katie left the house again at 8 p.m. She was last seen walking toward Fremont Boulevard. But Katie never made it home, and she has never been seen or heard from again. Due to the teen's troubled nature and the broken-down relationship she had with her mother, Katie's disappearance was not immediately a cause for alarm to police. Although her mother reported her missing, she felt, along with officers, that her daughter had run away from home, especially when she realized that some of her daughter's clothing was gone. Additionally, when Katie's mother began putting up missing posters, she received numerous calls from people who had seen the young girl still in the area. As a result of this, the family felt that she would probably return home in a few days. But she never did. In more recent years, law enforcement have noted that they believed it's likely Katie met with foul play at around the same time she disappeared. They felt it would have been extremely difficult for a young girl to have stayed away from home for so long. Katie's case has received very little media coverage over the years, and as a result, information and theories are scarce. The main hypothesis, suggested by both local law enforcement and the FBI, is that her disappearance is connected to the abduction and murder of 13-year-old Christina Marie Williams. Christina was abducted while out walking her dog in the Fort Oro area of Seaside on June 12, 1998, just 2 months after Katie was last seen. 7 months later, Christina's body was found. A man named Charles Hollefeld was the main suspect in the murder. He had been in prison for attempted kidnapping and had raped multiple teenage girls in the past, although he'd been convicted on only 2 of these assault cases. In 2011, Hollefeld's ex recanted an alibi that she had given in 1998, explaining that he had threatened to harm her if she didn't provide him with it. Then in 2016, his DNA was found to be a match for DNA found on Christina's clothing. In 2020, Hollefeld was found guilty of kidnapping, raping, and murdering Christina. As a result, he was sentenced to life in prison. Both Christina and Katie were students at King's Middle School. Both had brown hair and were around the same size, and both had been out walking alone at dusk on the days that they disappeared. Many of Hollefeld's victims had shoulder-length brown hair, were in their early teens, and were past or current students at Fitch Middle School. More eerily still, Katie vanished just a few blocks from Hollefeld's brother's house, a location that he frequented. As a result of these similarities, it has been considered a strong possibility that Hollefeld was indeed involved with Katie's disappearance. However, there is currently no evidence connecting him to the case. Katie, or her remains, have yet to be found. Her mother clings to hope that she is still alive and living a new life somewhere else in the country. If Katie is still alive, she will be 36 years old. If you have any information about her disappearance or whereabouts, you can contact the Monterey Police Department on 831-646-3830. Esra Uyrun, Leah Brennan, Dublin, Ireland. Moving on to our third case. This one is from our patron Leah, who chose the capital city Dublin in Ireland as her location. A beautiful and historical city, known for its arts and culture and abundance of tourist attractions. It is also home to many of Ireland's most infamous cold cases. Esra Uyrun was a 38-year-old mother of one, living with her husband and their toddler-aged son in Clondalkin, Dublin, when she disappeared one morning in the winter of 2011. Esra and her husband Oscar were originally from London, but both were of Turkish descent and had decided to make the move to Ireland just 4 years prior to Esra going missing. On the morning of February 23rd, 2011, Esra told her husband that she needed to nip to the shops before he left for work that morning at 8 a.m. The couple only had one car, so the 38-year-old planned to pop out and come back before Oscar had to leave. In the days leading up to Esra's disappearance, she had been excitedly preparing for the arrival of both her mother and mother-in-law, who were due to leave London and arrive in Dublin the following day for a visit. Just 5 months earlier, in October of 2010, Esra's father had passed away, so she thought it would be good for her and her mother to spend time together, and for her mother to see the couple's young son. However, Esra's mother did not enjoy traveling, so she asked Oscar's mother to accompany her. That morning, between 7:15 and 7:20 a.m., Esra left the couple's house in their car, a Renault Twingo, and headed out. Oscar waited for her to return, but the 38-year-old never came back. Later that day, as Oscar became increasingly concerned, he called his nearest police station, only to be told they would not yet investigate, and he should sit tight and wait. His wife may have just been held up somewhere. However, Esra did not return home that evening, prompting Oscar to call the couple's families and let them know he felt there was something wrong. One of the 38-year-old's sisters told him to go down to the police station with the car's license plate number, while the family members organized flights over to Dublin. At 11 p.m. that night, the couple's Renault was found in the car park at Bray Head, a popular scenic walking route frequented by dog walkers, joggers, and hikers alike. Bray Head was between 30 and 40 minutes from the family home, leaving friends and family confused as to why Esra would drive all the way out there, knowing her husband needed the car. Inside the trunk, investigators found Esra's purse, which contained 60 euros in cash, her driver's license, and her debit cards. The next day, family members of Oscar's and Esra's arrived in the Irish capital. Within 48 hours of the discovery of the Renault, local law enforcement were considering the theory that Esra had taken her own life due to the grief she felt from losing her father. Bray Head is made up of steep drops and high cliffs, making it a popular spot for suicide. However, family, friends, and even neighbors disputed the idea that the mother of one was depressed. She was besotted with her son, had no marriage troubles, and was excited to see her mother and mother-in-law, a trip she had been planning for months beforehand. In the days following the disappearance, Esra's sister began going to the Bray Head car park every morning, where she got to know the regulars. However, no one recognized the mother of one's photo, leading to a dead end. Eventually, police traced CCTV footage of the Renault on the morning that Esra vanished. It showed the car at a roundabout at 7:50 a.m., less than 5 minutes away from the house. The vehicle was driving away from the property. Then, surveillance showed the Renault suddenly driving erratically before entering the Bray Head car park at 8:40 a.m., narrowly avoiding a collision with a silver Skoda Octavia. The 38-year-old's loved ones told authorities that she was a nervous and cautious driver. CCTV showed the car drive into the lot before disappearing from view. It re-emerged, and the vehicle left the car park. Unfortunately for investigators and the family, the footage was too grainy for anyone to be able to make out who was driving the vehicle. The driver of the Skoda has never come forward. Further footage was released by authorities in the following weeks, which showed a dark-haired woman walking from the car park. The woman looked back and paused several times, and investigators felt that this could be their missing mother of one. Family and friends disagreed, however, noting the height and build differences of the two women. They also noticed that on the CCTV images, there was a small shape hurrying towards the unidentified woman. It appeared as if she was stopping to check on and wait for her dog. Most notably, however, is the 2-hour time difference between when this footage was captured and when the Renault pulled into the parking lot. Esra's mobile phone last pinged at Bray Head at around 10 p.m. on the day of her disappearance, but it has never been located. Then, in early 2012, one of her sisters was approached by a shopkeeper who found her keys after someone left them on the counter of his store. He knew they were Esra's because they had a keyring attached with an image of her, Oscar, and the couple's child on it, and he recognized her image from the news. According to the shopkeeper, he found the keys on his counter around Christmas time 2012, but he had just stored them away, thinking whoever had left them would return. No one did, however, and he soon realized they belonged to Esra. Instead of giving them to the police, he waited for the family to return to Dublin, as they often did, to keep interest in the case alive. Due to the passage of time, however, no CCTV could be recovered from the time period that the keys were dropped off, making it impossible for Esra's family or law enforcement to trace the person who had left them at the store. Interestingly, the chip shop where the keys had been left was close to the Uyrun family home. Online sleuths have wondered that if Esra did take her own life, how had her keys ended up at least 30 minutes away, 10 months after her demise? Following her disappearance, Oscar and their son moved back to London so that they could be close to both sides of the family. In 2020, authorities re-investigated the area of Bray Head after a witness came forward claiming that he'd heard a woman screaming and calling for help on the day that Esra disappeared. The man said he couldn't see the woman, but he asked her if she needed help, and she told him no. However, no further evidence was found. Esra Uyrun was last seen on February 23, 2011, leaving her home in Dublin while driving the Renault Twingo she shared with her husband. She stood at 5'3" and had dark hair and green eyes. Esra was last seen wearing black leggings, a dark top, and white Nike trainers. If you have any information on her disappearance or current whereabouts, you can contact the Runnersdown Garda station at 01666 7700, or you can call the Garda confidential line to remain anonymous on 1-800 666 111. Mary Lands. Jacob Colvin, Marshall, Michigan. Our penultimate case this month comes from the historic city of Marshall in Michigan, a location which was chosen by our patron, Jacob. Home to around 7,000 citizens, Marshall is well loved by tourists who flock to the city to enjoy its intricate architecture and numerous attractions. But lingering beneath the surface is one of Michigan's most tragic cases. Mary Lands was preparing to be a grandmother in the spring of 2004. A mother to 2 fully grown children, the 39-year-old wasn't short on friends and came from a very tight-knit family. When most of her siblings moved to California, followed shortly by her parents, they begged her to go with them. But Mary wanted to be nearby for her children. According to Mary's live-in fiancé, Christopher Luke Pratt, the couple argued on the evening of March 12, 2004. Following the fight, between 10 and 10:30 p.m., Pratt watched Mary walk away from their shared apartment in the 1200 block of Arms Street. She may possibly have been intoxicated at the time and was visibly upset when she told her partner that she was going for a walk before heading around the carport. The 39-year-old left behind her clothes, mobile phone, keys, and engagement ring. She also left behind her car. The only thing she took with her was her white mesh handbag. Mary's brother, Mike, was the one who filed a missing persons report. On March 14th, just 2 days after the mother of 2 was last seen, Pratt called his fiancé's family in California to ask them if they'd seen her or knew where she was. The family had no idea what he was talking about, as Pratt explained that he hadn't seen Mary in 2 days. Following this discovery, the family returned to Michigan, reported the 39-year-old missing, and helped to carry out searches and hand out missing persons posters. Authorities were able to pin down some of Mary's last movements. At around 6:30 on the evening of March 12th, she was seen on CCTV buying supplies at the Marshall Party store. Afterwards, she met up with Pratt at a tanning salon, where witnesses saw the two arguing as they left. Later that evening, Mary planned to hang out with a friend, but when the friends turned up at the couple's apartment, Pratt told her that Mary was no longer available to go out. Police dogs managed to trace the 39-year-old's scent to a nearby motel shortly after she disappeared, but there was no sign of Mary at the establishment, and there were no indications of where she might have gone either. Her bank accounts have been left untouched since she went missing, and her credit cards have not been used since early 2004, before she vanished. Although Pratt was questioned following the discovery that the mother of 2 was missing, he quickly grew quiet. As of 2019, law enforcement have not spoken with him since April of 2004. He is still considered a person of interest, although he has never been named as a suspect. Pratt was married once before and has a long history of domestic violence. In 2007, he was arrested for assaulting his girlfriend and convicted of unlawful imprisonment and criminal sexual conduct. Although he was paroled in 2013, his name, along with Mary's, came back into headlines in 2019 when Pratt was accused of sexually assaulting a 16-year-old girl. In June of 2019, 2 different tips were received by the Venus Foundation about the location of Mary's remains. Their missing persons division was dispatched and assisted by the K-9 Human Remains Detection for ground search in the village of Tekonsha, Michigan. However, this lead appears to have been a dead end. That same year, a petition was created seeking the Michigan Attorney General's help and asking that the FBI investigate the handling of the case and the alleged disappearance of some of the evidence collected in the investigation. The petition also claimed that some of the officers in the Marshall Police Department had connections to Pratt, and that these should also be investigated. It is unclear what evidence disappeared in the case, as articles mentioning this incident are few and far between. No charges have ever been brought to Christopher Luke Pratt, nor anyone else in relation to Mary's disappearance. The 39-year-old mother of 2 was declared legally dead in 2011, although according to investigators, her case is still open and active. Her family has remained in Michigan since her disappearance. Mary Lands was last seen leaving her apartment in the 1200 block of Arms Street in the city of Marshall, Michigan, between 10 and 10:30 on the night of March 12, 2004. She is a white female, standing at around 5'6", with brown hair and brown eyes. When she was last seen, she weighed around 160 pounds and wore a light blue hospital scrub shirt with a teddy bear or SpongeBob print, dark blue scrub trousers, slip-on trainers, and a brown leather jacket. She was also carrying her white mesh handbag. Mary has pierced ears and a pierced navel. She has a scar on her left arm from a polio vaccination and wore brown-framed reading glasses. Her maiden name is Marshall, and she may go by the name Mary Denise Marshall Lands. If she is still alive, Mary will be 56 years old. If you have any information about her disappearance or whereabouts, you can contact the Marshall Police Department on 269-781-2596. Melissa Jo Sermons, Ainsley, Auburndale, Polk County, Florida. Our final case location this month comes from our patron Ainsley, who chose the city of Auburndale in Polk County, Florida. Although we found a couple of unsolved cases from this area, we were unable to find more information on the disappearances beyond a mere paragraph or two. As a result, we looked to the city of Lakeland, less than 20 minutes away, and uncovered several strange, unsolved mysteries. On May 3rd of 1992, 26-year-old Melissa Jo Sermons attended a rodeo in Dade City with her new boyfriend, 31-year-old Elwyn Lawrence Costine Jr., or Larry to those who knew him. The couple had met while working on Melissa's uncle's ranch. Larry had recently divorced his wife, Donna, while Melissa had ended her prior relationship with another ranch worker just 1 month before. At the rodeo, Larry and his friend participated in a team roping contest. The pair won the grand prize of $350 and split it evenly between them. Afterwards, at around 2 a.m., Larry and Melissa met a friend for something to eat. According to reports, they parted ways with the friend at around 4 a.m. and retired to Larry's trailer in the 12,600 block of Moore Road in Lakeland. Authorities believe the couple arrived there at around 4:15 a.m. and determined that Melissa never returned to her own home that night. The following day, both Larry and Melissa missed work. It wasn't long before their concerned family members and Melissa's uncle contacted the authorities. On May 5th, 2 days after the pair were last seen alive, Larry's nude body was discovered on the bedroom floor of his unlocked trailer. The 31-year-old had been shot several times in the head and back. One of his guns was missing, but there were no signs of a struggle or a robbery, and his bed had not been slept in. There was no trace of Melissa at the scene. Initially, authorities believed that the 26-year-old had been involved in the crime, and for some time she was wanted for questioning. They believed that nobody else would be able to get close enough to kill her boyfriend. Alternatively, they thought she may have witnessed the crime and fled in fear. Meanwhile, Larry's ex-wife stated her belief that Melissa was involved. She believed the pair had fought and Melissa had killed him. However, both Melissa's family and Larry's family always believed that the young woman had nothing to do with the crime and that she was likely a victim herself. It wasn't until 2013 that authorities began to see things the same way. In July of 2013, investigators announced that Melissa's ex-boyfriend, Danny Carrezo, was a suspect in Larry's murder and Melissa's disappearance. Carrezo and Melissa had split up the month before she vanished, with the 26-year-old initiating the breakup. The couple had lived together on Carrezo's property for a year after meeting on her uncle's ranch. Following the split, Carrezo kept in touch with his ex-girlfriend's family and constantly asked for updates about the new relationship. The day before Melissa went missing, she spoke with him on the phone and told him that she was dating Larry and did not want to see or speak with him further. Additionally, Melissa's mother told authorities that Carrezo had been stalking not only the 26-year-old, but her sisters too. Around the same time, law enforcement added that they had physical evidence linking Carrezo to the crime scene. Despite this, no charges have ever been brought against him for murder. In recent years, investigators added that they believe Carrezo's brother, Joseph, helped carry out the horrific crime. Witnesses said that the two had bragged about dumping Melissa's remains in the Green Swamp near Tampa and Orlando. The two brothers made their living trafficking cocaine from the Florida Keys to Atlanta, Georgia, although Danny more recently worked as a forest ranger. Joe died in 2008, but according to rumors online, shortly before he passed away, he told an inmate about the crime and the part he played in it. In 2014, Danny was indicted for lying to a Florida grand jury in relation to Melissa's and Larry's case. According to West Orlando News, he was charged with making a false statement in the prosecution of the capital felony. The indictment did not, however, disclose what he had lied about. Since then, there have been no new updates in the case. Melissa's body has never been recovered, and charges have yet to be brought against Danny. 26-year-old Melissa Jo Sermons was last seen on May 3, 1992, when she attended a rodeo with her boyfriend, Larry Costine, in Dade City, Florida. Melissa is a white female who stands at 5'10" and has green eyes. When she was last seen, she had blonde hair and weighed around 175 pounds. She has a scar under her nose and pierced ears. At the time of her disappearance, she was wearing a black shirt, turquoise trousers, white or grey boots, a horseshoe ring with diamonds on it, a black watch, and a rope chain. Melissa may go by Jo, and may spell the name J-O-E instead of J-O. She may also use the name Pauline Krause. If Melissa is still alive, she will be 55 years old. If you have any information about the whereabouts of Melissa Sermons or the murder of Larry Costine, you can call the Polk County Sheriff's Office on 863-298-6200. And there you have the facts. I'd like to thank all our incredible supporters on Patreon and congratulate this month's winners once again. If you'd like to be in with a chance of having your hometown featured in an upcoming Too Close to Home, you can join us on Patreon by following the link below. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.